Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and a tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to the Thursday edition of my bi-weekly behind-the-scenes DM-only live stream, Rafting Icewind Down, which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Rime of the Frostmaiden. If you are playing characters Robin, Frey, Celeste, Edmund, or Thimbleweed, the stream is not for you, but for the rest of you, welcome. Of course, there will be spoilers. We stream our D&D sessions live on YouTube every Friday. Watch all of these sessions and reviews here on the channel. You can follow me on Twitter at Rogue Watson and join our official Discord server with invite link in the description below. If you would like to support the channel, please check out patreon.com/Rogue Watson. For our campaign, we use Roll20.net, and for streaming, I use Open Broadcaster software with Streamlabs. I was a little late coming on today, but I am proud to say that we are making some real progress in the potty training department. For my toddler, I should specify. Me, I have been potty trained for years, many years. Some real exciting progress. It's been great to see. She has been just a pain in the ass for that, and it's gotten to the, we're in that tricky situation where like she can draw the perfect amount of aggro with any parent by just yelling, I gotta go, and then we gotta drop whatever we're doing and immediately go in for the assist. So hopefully it does not occur during the stream, but in order to make that kind of consistency and positive reinforcement and everything, you kind of end up with a boy who cried wolf situation, I guess. But in this case, it's, I get it. You're trying to figure out the rumbling down under and how to work out those details. So if you want more of my young parenting advice, I will give it to you freely. All right, but right now we are talking about Ithrin still. I don't know if you all are getting sick of this map. I'm still enjoying it, but I think, as I discussed on Monday, we are going to start wrapping things up here. I think I'm ready to start the end game. Ithrin was the end game, and then the Spire of Eriolarthus. I have to think about it every time before I actually say it, the pronunciation. I think we're ready to enter that final area, which means I believe I'm okay with skipping the Tower of Evocation, just in the interest of pacing and time. It's a fine tower, but I also think it's partially a consequence of reaching this higher level, because I have leveled my players up to 14 at this point. It feels like they really need to be, and maybe that's just more on 5th edition's rule set than on me, but at this point they need to be saving whatever they need to be doing. Like they've reached a level, and it's been a lot to try to come up with more powerful creatures and situations to continue to challenge them, because this whole area was designed for like 9th level initially. So that's probably been the most interesting change of this campaign and required a lot of work on my end for the second half. I've enjoyed it for the most part. I think it's been challenging in a good way for me as a DM versus just running a campaign mostly as is, which is kind of what I did with Tomb. But on the other hand, I'm also ready to wrap things up, and I don't really need to add a whole bunch of other stuff in here. And frankly, as I mentioned before when we first started Ithrin, I'm glad I have way more content than I know what to do with, right? Like I'm going to only end up using maybe 60 or 70% of the locations in here. I think we're not going to use the museum, the Skydock Spire. I actually forget what 25 and 27 were over here. And then 3 of the towers, and then the obelisk I'm not quite sure on either. The obelisk can factor into the main story quite a bit. I guess I'm not... I know I don't want to really do the time travel thing, but maybe I can use it as like the key they need to turn off the Mythalar. Although I also like the idea of just having the final fight around the Mythalar in general, and then you can create a really interesting, environmental thing going on with the Mythalar, like constantly ripping open space-time and just being kind of an exciting, dangerous moment. So tomorrow they're going to get through the Tower of Necromancy. I think I've talked about it enough to where I don't want to over-prepare either, because I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work. I did mention the fact that I'm going to try to snag either Frey or Edmund, or both if one of them makes the save. When it comes to the High Necromancer possessing one of them and then going through with all that. And then I will tease the fact that his lover is not the High Enchantress, which I actually did do a hilarious little bit of redacting. You can see here, I literally edited it in like Paint and then redacted it and now redid it, but whatever, because I didn't want to redo the whole handout. That information is not need to know. I will tease the fact that his lover is Auril, and that can play in, hopefully, to the story in some interesting way, and obviously prevent us from having to go to the Tower of Enchantment and deal with all of that from a story standpoint. Or they could just tell him to fuck off or kill him, and then we don't have to worry about it at all, and it's not a big deal. Like, they have a lot going on. I've added a lot going on, probably too much, but on the other hand, it allows the freedom of me, the DM, to not necessarily have anything be, like when you play an open world, like, gosh, I can't believe I'm still referencing Skyrim. That game's got to be 15 years old by now. But it has almost, maybe, no, I'm not actually sure about this. Does it have any critical NPCs that you literally cannot kill because the game won't continue? I'm not sure. It might. I know in Oblivion, I don't think you could kill Sean Bean's character off too early because you needed that character for at least the first half of the game. But what I like to see is that kind of story, the way the open world game allows you to have other means of progressing without having to have these critical NPCs. Even Valin, to an extent, is not a critical NPC because I've got all these other, important Arcane Brotherhood, for example. Now, having more of them here and having them survive gives me more options, which we're going to explore. But none of them were particularly must-haves. I think you might have to check me on that throughout the campaign. Maybe there was some that propped up. I mean, obviously, people who give you quests and they like take you to the location, then that person's important until they're not. But in terms of needing to have a critical NPC that must survive to kind of give important information or whatever, I think this campaign has done a good job of not relying on that versus the original written campaign, which is that Valin does have like all of the information and becomes a very critical NPC, and I've tried to move away from that. I've also tried to make her more enjoyable because she's been with the party for a good chunk of this campaign. Although we did a fun thing where she was taken out of the party for a good while, and then they got to rescue her again, which was nice. Now, how does the party meet up with Valish and Nass and the Ice Devil, which I am leaning towards allowing that devil to ally with Valish and Nass? This part gets a little awkward because at this point, once the party completes the Tower of Necromancy, they don't really know where to go or what to do. In my poor party, this is where a lot of parties are different. Some are going to be keen on exploring and going off their own and doing whatever they want. My group, and I think partially because we're kind of born into the VTT and Roll20 thing where we kind of see where the options are, so we don't just try to talk about where we're going to go, but we kind of see and listen to the DM about where we're going to go next and what options we have. They don't know that they don't need to do the other towers. They haven't gotten that update yet. So what I would like them to do is just return to the spire entrance to the final area, and then they can meet up with the Ice Devil, who will give them the remaining towers and say that he did complete his task. But then, record scratch twist, he then allied with Valish and Nass. And I'm still trying to figure out how to exactly work on that. So I may actually pull this up so we can listen to it together. I wonder if I still have that on here. I believe it was session, flip to your textbooks, session 81. Maybe session 80. Let's go back to session 80. Yes, it was session 80. Okay. So I'm actually going to put on my headphones. And what you're going to end up hearing is this session. I'm going to try to mute it if it plays any ads for me.
He'll do it. What does he have to do? Do you have to like shake his hand or what?
Sign your name.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sign your name.
All right, so I paused it for a second. So you can tell I watched it this bit earlier. I'm literally at session 80, and what I'm trying to do is make sure I get the Ice Devil contract exactly right, so I can reference that, so the player doesn't feel like they've been betrayed or anything. Although clearly it was a devil contract, so that's kind of the fun of it.
Very well. Robin will sign his name on the contract.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna back up a little bit and make sure we get the full context of this event. Okay. Swan. Form. Task.
Is it possible for me to make as like we get to the end of this?
Yeah.
Is it possible for me to make some sort of insight check? Just I don't know.
Make sure there's no underlying.
Make sure that he's not like quietly snickering to himself that he's about to fuck me over or something.
Do it with disadvantage because your initial identification check was so hilariously bad.
Yeah, I don't have I can't get a good read on this insect boy.
And if I recall, he misses. I don't think I've done this before, by the way. It's like comment on the session while we're playing it. I think he fails these checks.
Pretty good.
17.
That's pretty good. Not good enough. And then I rolled an 18. So he fails the insight check. I think he does make an investigation check, though, when he reads the contract.
Not good enough.
Yeah, it's a battle of wills right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I probably wouldn't. At that, with a 17, I probably wouldn't know that I failed.
Right, yeah. I mean, that'd be me. I probably should have just done it behind it, but, we always do it in the public.
Yeah.
But, yeah. But it looks legit. Yeah, he looks like he is eager to get out of here and willing to make this deal. Let's see when we make the addendum.
All right, but Robin will read the contract. He will not just sign it blindly.
Okay.
He will scan the contract for any verbiage that seems like a loophole or that he owns my soul as part of the contract or anything like that.
Yeah. Roll an investigation check.
Okay. Oh, something I'm also not great at. That's lovely.
Interesting.
11.
I know, he rolls makes an 11. Okay. It's hard to parse, but I mean, it seems to your knowledge that everything's on the level. And you've got a background with this stuff. You probably haven't dealt with too many demonic contracts in your day, but it looks like it's legit.
All right, he'll do it. What does he have to do? Do you have to like shake his hand or what? How does it
Sign
work?
your name.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sign your name.
Very.
Okay, so we need to go back further than that. Let's see. You're gonna come back and just see him signing his name. For those of you joining us, I'm looking back through episode 80 to make sure we get the contract information correct. I wrote it down, but I'm gonna scrub it again for all of you because this obviously determines in what manner the Ice Devil returns and gives the information, and then how best I can kind of swing this as a follow-up to what happened in session 80, where they released the Ice Devil and then gave a very specific contract.
How many towers are there total?
There are 8 towers total.
8.
One for each school of magic.
All right, and he's gonna say, for the freedom. He'll look at the runes. Let's make it poetic. I will remove 4 of the runes from this circle for 4 tasks. You will visit 4 towers. You will gather the clues required to enter the main tower from those 4 towers, and he'll
4 towers and enter the 4. Oh, we got baby aggro. Okay. You need to go potty? Okay. I told you it was gonna happen. All right, I'll be right back. All right, thank you for your patience. We were not quite in time, but still progress, because before I would never have been alerted to the situation. And this time it is worth the aggro. All right, so mentioned 4 towers, which is tricky because so actually maybe that might work in my favor. Let me go back a little bit. Get my breath after running up and down the stairs.
For the freedom, he'll look at the runes. Let's make it poetic. I will remove 4 of the runes from this circle for 4 tasks. You will visit 4 towers. You will gather the clues required to enter the main tower from those 4 towers, and he'll specify the 4, the transmutation,
Okay.
and then starting from there, going north, or northeast, I suppose, around.
Yeah, so this is something I changed where there's only actually 3 towers over there rather than 4. But maybe, I mean, let's go back to the Necropolis map. They'll be starting at transmutation and would have done 4 towers. So this transmutation, we can say one of these is enchantment, the other one's evocation, and then it would have to go up. So maybe it could meet them at the ruined Tower of Illusion as they're coming back. They can see the Ice Devil approaching. Because Tower of Necromancer would be their 5th. So they actually don't need him to do 4, they just need him to do 3. So that way I can have him actually meet up with him here and give him the information. And that way, once they have all the information, in other words, it can just basically tell them the other 3 lines, because they'll get the 5th one. And I actually did make a shield, a quest update that specifically has the lines here, because I don't want to be scrubbing through all my, messages and notes. They should just have that information in a quest log format. I'm giving it to them here. They've got 4 so far. They're going to get their 5th one from the Tower of Necromancy, and then they'll get the final 3 from the Ice Devil. Basically, somewhere probably around the Tower of Illusion, I'll just have them be able to see it approaching, and they can come out and kind of meet it, and then we can go from there.
On the circle.
Counterclockwise motion.
That's right, counterclockwise motion. And then you will meet us and provide the information that you have learned in full. After which you will be free to
provide the information you... Okay, hang on. You'll visit 4 towers. You will gather the clues required to enter the main tower from these towers. Then you will meet us and provide the information you have learned in full. Okay. I kept asking, an Ice Devil even read Draconic? That's an interesting plot hole I may be discovering, but we can say for simplicity's sake. I mean, the goal of this is not to screw the players over when it, I've been playing through all session. Is not to screw the players out of the information. That was not my intention for the whole Ice Devil thing. In fact, the intention is to have this... Well, my original intention was to have Valish and Nass simply gather the information, and then they would uphold their end of the bargain and give it to the players and have a better bargaining chip. But what's interesting is now they kind of lost their bargaining chip with the Ice Devil having learned that information and then providing that to the players, although I would like the twist that it basically allied... instead of taking care of those 2, it ends up allying with them, I think, in a way, and maybe they made a deal with it. In fact, I like maybe the angle that like restored Nass's real body to her or something. I wonder if it has that kind of power. Are devil... Do they have like genie powers? Can they just do anything? Not actually sure it has that kind of power. It might be a little too much for it. Normally it only speaks in telepathy and it understands the infernal language. I just gave you an applesauce. Now you need a pretzel?
Just in case.
Oh my goodness.
Just in case. Just in case.
The whole... Oh, okay. That was a giant pretzel. I can eat, I swear to goodness. I guess I'm treating it too much like a genie. You know what's interesting is Nas would know the language. Maybe it could repeat the. Maybe it would be able to repeat the able to repeat the line in Draconic, so it wouldn't actually know what the line is, but it would be able to simply recite exactly what it was, and then somebody on the party side would then be able to translate it. So that's probably how I'd work it out if we cared. We may just hand wave that away for simplicity's sake. All right, so let's continue.
Return to your home or wherever else you wish to go.
Turn to your home or wherever else you wish to go. That was a pretty big oopsie doopsie right there. Make sure I get that very clearly. I'm scrubbing through session 80 for those of you listening in. I'm gonna go back about 20 seconds.
And he'll specify the transmutation.
Okay.
And then starting from there, going, north or northeast, I suppose, around the circle.
Counterclockwise motion.
That's right, counterclockwise motion. And then you will meet us and provide the information that you have learned in full. After which you will be free to return to your home or wherever else you wish to go.
Okay. That in there. After which, return to your home or wherever you wish to go. Because motivation-wise, devils want souls. So anytime I can make a deal for a soul would be preferential, I think. Game's prerogative to make this an ice devil. It could be anything that you want it to be, just in the form of an ice devil. Yeah. Oh, Chris was in on crafting. Not quite. That would be not allowed for sure. All right, back to the session. The Quill, he never even touches it. Quill just like writes all this shit down on the contract as you can look at it and look it over, and it seems to be exactly as you dictated.
Quill.
Yep, and you see it reaches a clawed hand, and it can get its hands actually across the runes just fine, and signs a completely ineligible like foreign language onto it on his side, and then turns it to you. Legible, I think is what I was trying to say.
Will have a bargain then. One addendum.
Okay, pausing here. This is important. He does add the addendum about the two wizards.
There are two wizards currently attempting to complete the same task. In order to successfully fulfill this contract, you must complete your tasks before they do. They do have a good few hours head start on you, but you can fly, probably. It looks like you've got wings of some sort.
Alright, so I'm pausing it here. So, doesn't mention anything about having to deal with them, or taking them out, or interacting with them. The only part of the contract is that you must, it does reference them, two wizards trying to fulfill the same task. In order to fulfill this contract, you must complete your tasks before they do. Which could mean, and it is bound by this, that, I mean, nothing against even having to chat with them, interact with them. So when it gets to, the first tower and very quickly tries to complete the task, the wizards would be able to ask it questions, and it would probably force them to make a deal. Which maybe they're in for a penny, in for a pound mentality here at this point, because they know how strong the party is. So maybe they're like, well, let's just make a deal with the devil. So instead, yeah, and what Jason was talking about, the Ice Devil in the book is meant to ally with Avarice. Can look that up again. Is it still in the Tower of Conjuration in here? Why 7? No, that was the Night Hags. Where was the Ice Devil? Maybe it was somewhere else. I do recall, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe this is something that Towers of Magic did. Tower of Conjuration. But okay, maybe it's not in the book then. Maybe it was Dan Kahn that said, "Hey, this Ice Devil will ally with." Yeah, it seeks out Avarice and helps her achieve her goals because in the book, Avarice is, I believe, allied with the demons, devils, whatever that's actually a big distinction. She sold her soul for power. I haven't introduced that angle, so that may be kind of out of left field here. She's just kind of a typical power hungry wizard. I haven't really introduced the demonic angle, and also I think like tiefling thing would be a little too on the nose to make her like, oh yeah, she allied with devils. So I don't know if I'm gonna use that angle. Receiving vision of its master eagerly waits the arrival of Avarice. Agent of Levistus. Which I haven't done any of the this is the only like devil thing I've done for this whole campaign. I kind of got rid of the whole like Dwarger Asmodeus thing. It just felt like it was too much for this campaign. They already had a lot of stuff going on. So I think what may end up happening is instead of having it ally with Avarice, even though she's already got her whole team of Chardalyn soldiers, it instead ends up allying with Baelish and Nass. Because my ultimate goal, as I showed a little bit earlier, is to do this. And have a quasi-showdown between our 3 surviving arcane wizards. Dazan unfortunately lost his life following the great crash of the Nautiloid, which is fine because him being saddled with the party for the entire Arl's Abode chapter, I think, would have been ultimately probably a little too much. So we just kind of killed him off screen after he performed admirably well, but ultimately his usefulness in the story had kind of petered out by then. And yet, Avarice has been written out of the story for a good long while, and she finally just came back recently. Baelish and Nass have been in the very end of this campaign. So I thought it'd be fun for outside of the Spire, which I'm making this our Spire entrance, kind of treating it like a magic elevator thing. Although an elevator that kind of moves like diagonally, I guess, if you look at the Necropolis map. And it'd be interesting if I could somehow get this angle right of, and obviously Valen with the party, of having the 3 surviving wizards, Nass, and I guess Baelish too was Arcane Brotherhood. He's been in prison for a while. Avarice and then Valen, and having these 3 separate factions all wanting to get inside and get their hands on the Mythallar. My goal is not to necessarily force a fight here. Instead, this should be a very tense negotiation, basically, between the party and these other factions, in that they all want a piece of it, and none of the wizards are going to want to agree. When it comes down to it, they're very petty and competitive with each other. I believe there's also a clause somewhere in the Arcane Brotherhood, I don't know if it's going to mention here or not, that they can't actually directly harm one another, at least they're not supposed to. 2 wizards of the Arcane Brotherhood attempt to realize their grand ambitions, Valen and Avarice. Because in the book, Nass, I've made Nass and Baelish Gaunt way bigger characters in my version of the story, versus the book, Nass is just a ghost in that one area that you find, and then Baelish is just some jerk in prison that you can talk to, whereas here I've made them much bigger characters. Use Valen and Avarice to help them. Both NPCs are highly intelligent, help the characters arrive at a solution. You as a DM can use them to keep the adventure from grinding to a halt, which, I mean, that's kind of was my goal. I used at least this pair to go around and solve the other towers, although then the players went ahead and did the Ice Devil to do it, so it turns out I didn't have to do that. Both Valen and Avarice will do almost anything to obtain Iriel Arthas' spell book. That's interesting. So I'd probably replace that with the Mythalar, which I have. They will only slightly less determined when it comes to choose who gets Iriarth's Staff of Power, the Scroll of the Comet, and the Scroll of Tarask Summoning. We're going to have to talk about if we want to introduce any of these things. I do think the Comet is a little easier for me to wrap my head around in terms of not causing me a giant headache as a DM versus the Tarask Summoning, although Tarask Summoning is just a hilarious ability. Comet would make a really great way of getting out of here, though. I think somebody on Monday mentioned the fact that they used the Scroll of the Comet, or if that was you, Jason, in how to like escape this area or even cause the city to like fly, and which that would be if somebody were able to attune to the Mythalar and like and roll like the check of their life and maybe be able to control it. But I thought the better angle would be like that person could become like their own god, like Auril basically. It does mention the Dazan Smallcrum if it survives, but Dazan did not. Valen, yeah, she's got useful spells. Leoman's Tiny Hut. It's useful as possible, taking claim to her fair share of whatever treasures found in Ithrin. She's been interested in magic items, especially those of a wizardly bent. If the brothers part way with Valen for any reason, she tries to explore Ithrin alone and contracts the arcane blight. She's either partially or fully transformed into a Nothic. That's fun. Avarice follows the characters to the Caves of Hunger to Ithrin, killing any NPCs they left behind to guard the caves. The albino tiefling wizard is joined by her 2 gargoyles, her raven familiar, 20 Knights of the Black Sword cult fanatics, and 10 roped mountain goats. So I have replaced the Knight of the Black Sword cult fanatic stat block, which is, I think, just like a bandit stat block. I guess it's a little stronger. It's 33 hit points. I mean, more like a thug stat block then. I've replaced that with the Chardalyn Berserker, which is way more powerful. Way more powerful. And which, oddly, I haven't really used in this campaign. I think I used it like once, and it wasn't even armed at the time, as kind of a way to tease, like, hey, how strong the Chardalyn Madness is. But I'm literally, because the player's level 14, I'm like, fuck it. This is like, these are her forces now. And as you can see, they have an average of 100 or 90 hit points, and they have triple attack. They can also poison with their attacks because they're wielding Chardalyn weapons. They're supposed to have a Chardalyn Madness. We're on a roll of 1, they do nothing. But between you and me, we may ignore that. You have a leg to stand on. Ice Devil would summon a Yagnoloth to be the soul broker. That is, I'll have to look at that. Because they can summon demons, right? That was his whole thing? Ice Devil? Or summon a devil, sorry. I keep using them interchangeably, and I know that's a very different thing. They're literally at war with each other. All the time. Summon devil. An ice devil, which, because Ice Devil is like on the hierarchy, I believe. Higher on the hierarchy. Where they're like the lieutenants of archdevils, and they can summon lesser devils. An Ice Devil has 6 chance of summoning 1 Ice Devil. Well, that's kind of boring. It just summons the same kind of devil. Really, it can summon whatever I want it to be. Is that stronger than Ice Devil? CR11? I guess not. What is an Ice Devil? Use the Berserker when the team was level 3 or so. Yeah. I think I used like 1. Did I actually use a couple of them? I feel like I used 1 to like show off how strong Chardalyn Madness was. Ice Devil CR14. That is good to know, though, that I can just kind of summon whatever devil I wanted to, like, in combat. Oh yeah, handle the writing of contracts for all their kind. That's funny. Knights of the Black Sword seek common infirmally. The following additional trait: Avarice and her retinue enter the necropolis 12 hours after the party arrives. So I did try to do this. I even mentioned the fact that when they arrived, when they were in the telescope, which at that point I think was actually before their first long rest. After they got the long rest right when they arrived. Technically, it was like on the causeway, and then they did a whole bunch of stuff, and then they long rested after seeing her arrive, which to me that was like a full day of them being there. She does have a fly spell in order to reach her floating chamber at Skydock Spire, which is handy because the players have not been there. The goal is simple: conquer Ithrin and claim its treasures for herself. And it talks about dividing her hunting parties. If orders to attack the characters on site, I did change that because Avarice is tied to tied to Valravn. She becomes aware of Valin's presence. Ether and Avarice sees a Raven familiar deliver a written invitation to a rival, asking Valin to join her inside her floating lair. Valin accepts the invitation unless the character strongly discourages her from doing so. There, Avarice coldly lays down her terms. Abandon the necropolis within the hour. Conflict between members of the Arcane... Okay, here we go. Conflict between members of the Arcane Brotherhood is forbidden. But Avarice makes it clear she is willing to ignore the rule if nobody lives to find out. When Valin leaves the meeting, Avarice sends her familiar out to spy on her rival and see if her demands are met, which Valin has no intention of doing. Avarice is smart enough to ally with the characters if doing so might help her conquer Ithrin, but she won't join forces as long as Valin Harpel is with them. That's an important part, which is why I had Valin, if you recall, freak out that Valravn was chatting with Avarice. She demands that they cast out her hated rival. If the characters oblige and banish Valin from their ranks, Avarice reciprocates by sharing 1d4 pieces of Ithrin lore. That's not much of a reward. Unlike Valin, who accompanies the characters, Avarice prefers to remain in her glass chamber atop Skydock Spire and stay in touch with the characters remotely using Telepathy Wand spell, which Valravn does have. Once the characters find all the inscriptions they need to bypass the force field around the spire, Avarice emerges from her base and accompanies them into the tower, eager to claim the treasures inside. So this is where it gets tricky. Because everybody wants to get inside this tower because they want to get into the Mythalar. If I were writing a video game, this would be a pivotal moment where you would have to choose which wizard you want to ally with. You can either ally with Valin, who's been your friend this whole time, but doesn't come with any added benefits. You can ally with Avarice, who you probably don't trust much, but she does have ties to Valravn. She basically hired him. She's got a pair of gargoyle familiars, a pair of gargoyle allies, and then I put her with some Chardalyn berserkers as minions. Or you could ally with Valish and Nass, who you know are basically evil and bad, and yet they have worked with the players several times. And I also have given them an Ice Devil as an ally, because that is the bargain that the Ice Devil made with them. You would have to choose one of them, and then whoever you choose would accompany you into the spire, which obviously I'm hoping they pick Valin, because the others would tip the balance of power in their favor in terms of the added minions here. But I'm not writing a video game. I'm writing a D&D campaign. Or addending to one? I don't know. And the players are going to want to... Well, I don't know what they're going to do, honestly. What are they going to choose to deal with here? They may try and say, look, let's all just get a piece of things together. Like, we can all calm down. And, let us... And one issue I have is that, obviously, the players have a character who's so good at being the face in terms of his stats that any time I'm going to let him roll persuasion, I'm going to give them, it's basically me saying you've succeeded. Unless I make it like a DC 30 or something, which maybe that's what's required at this point, is to just up that DC level. I forget what the minimum he can roll, but it's... I think it's a 10 is the lowest he can roll, and then you add his persuasion modifier, which is like a plus 15 or something. It is a plus 15. So the worst he can roll is a 25. So literally I would have to make it like a DC 30 if I have a chance for him to fail at this. And actually that would be, he'd have to roll a 15 or higher in order to make a DC 30. Or we just let it play out like a role-playing scene and we don't have many checks involved. And we just see where the action takes us. At the very least, we're going to have the Ice Devil meet the players sooner than this event. Because it will be programmed, I guess, to go to that fourth tower, which it would be the Tower of Illusion, because I moved the Tower of Illusion. So I'm just going to let them see the Ice Devil. Maybe a cool scene where there's like some Nothics, running around, and you see like what does its spear attack do? It hurls a spear and nails, and my poor Nothics are just used for like environmental storytelling at this point. Oh no, it's still a melee weapon attack. Does it not have any cool range attacks? thought it was like, I almost pictured it like Hela from Ragnarok, where it's like shooting out these spears, but it's just another melee attack. Hey, Stevil, how are you this strong and you don't have any reliable range attacks? I know you've got a plus 10. You've got a 10-foot reach. I guess Wall of Ice is the thing that's got. Alright, well. I guess I can show it stabbing somebody. So they'll meet up with the Ice Devil. The Ice Devil will fulfill its part of the contract, which is completed the tasks before the wizards, and then meet us and provide the information you have learned in full. I could also have it just dramatically appear, because I could have it just have whatever fucking powers I want it to. Maybe after it... well, no, because it'd be programmed to complete that 4th tower, so it would still have to go into the Tower of Illusion. Maybe when they come into the Tower of Necromancy, it's coming out of the Tower of Illusion. That wouldn't be able to necessarily do that to the play and stuff, because the play was already done. This gets tricky. Which you return home or wherever you wish to go. So it could make a deal and say, you know, I'm under contract to Baelish and Nass. He's gonna come to the after effect that made Villain more liked, yeah. Vamp a character to one of the hills. Oof. You can attune to the Mythalar rules as written. Yes. And Grey Cat, that is something that I would love to play with in the final battle. But maybe as even like a series of checks or something where it's a big deal, and it literally, because it's like unstable. And maybe I can even do more open world game design and say, okay, here's your choice. If you attune to it, you can either choose to try to dissipate all this energy safely, which could involve making checks and then having a bunch of damage come out. And maybe starting this like horrible, like, oh god, the city is, you know, maybe create like a black hole and the city's being pulled into it and everybody has to run away from it or something. Or you can choose to absorb all the energy into yourself, which is basically what Auril did to become a goddess. And maybe that would require a different kind of check, or kill that person trying to do it, but it would still get rid of that energy. I would love to play around with that for sure. So this is a very, very tricky situation because I don't know how much I can actually prep for this scene. Because a lot of it depends on what the players choose to do. The wizards have their motivations. All of them want to get inside, and they want to be able to claim whatever riches are inside the spire, because they know that's got to be where the main... because this place has been protected, whereas everything else has been kind of exposed. They figure that's where the real treasures are, not the friends we made along the way. Although maybe Villain has learned a lesson about that. Also, they all want a piece of that Mythalar. They don't know how to do that, but nobody has ever seen, in my universe, nobody's ever seen a functioning Mythalar before. They've always been just, you know, drained artifacts that have been carefully studied. But this represents like a huge find in the arcane community. Belongs in a museum. So I'm very curious to see how the players work this out. The twist will be that the Ice Devil appears, tells them the information, so that now they know to go to the Spire. And then the Ice Devil will not make any more... the Ice Devil doesn't have to tell them shit, either. You know, basically, he just has to tell them the information he learned, and then it can go wherever it wants to go. So it may just poof away. I'll let the players return to the Spire. I don't know if I'm going to actually bother doing a random encounter or not. I may just describe one, or... it's a long way to go. I mean, surely they should probably run into at least one encounter, but I don't know if I should make it a combat encounter or not. One thing I've kind of been sitting on is one that has the floor explode on a bunch of gibbering mouthers. Maybe I could do that. It'd be funny if this big battle meeting actually drew the attention of the Shardalin Golem too. If things take too long, I can have the Shardalin Golem maybe get drawn over there. Yes, I do have them fighting Auril at some point. Not until they reach the Mythalar. So the whole reason Auril has not come here yet is because she still does fear the whole Mythalar angle. and what its power can do. So she wouldn't appear until probably absolutely necessary, which would be at the very end when somebody's like approaching the Mythalar and attempting to deal with its energy. And maybe the force field also maybe the force field spire is also keeping her away for DM reasons, so that once they defeat Larthus and unlock the path to the Mythalar, then Auril can instantly manifest in the city with her forces and create a whole nother thing. So whatever they don't decide to deal with the Spire entrance, they will have to deal with after the Spire and they go to the Mythalar. And I'm kind of hoping that they don't necessarily have all of these different factions march in with them to the Spire, because otherwise that goes from a semi-traditional dungeon crawl to just me like a montaging all of these forces just killing everything in there, and we just do kind of exploration stuff, which maybe we do that. Maybe that's an angle worth exploring. And there's not a lot of combat in here to begin with. There's one battle I was kind of hoping to do, which is a bunch of brains in a jar, or brain in a jars. Brains in jars. What is the plural? Where they're like clearly a bunch of wizards that have done this to themselves, and which I can tease from the Tower of Necromancy, by the way. Yeah? Okay, you still got your show going, right? I think that's in the Spire of Larthus section. Okay, can you wait a few more minutes and I'll come join you? It's this first Y19B. The ballroom. Yeah, and it's all like illusory scene of things happening just as they were. It's very much like this. It's the classic dystopian setting where like the ruling class has. Hey, give me a second, okay? All right, hang on one second. I got baby aggro. Okay, it's been a baby aggro day for the stream. I may add more brains in jar. I may add the helmed horrors here too, and whether or not I want to use Veneranda, I'm not quite sure. Because again, if they have more NPCs with them, I don't really know if I need to add more NPCs from in here. I'm just got my hands full. It gets a little much. And I'm very leery about adding a lot of NPCs in this scenario, because the more I add, the more that takes away from the player characters. So hopefully the party can work something out. If they can't, I could force a battle there where, you know, Avarice especially, and Valus and Nass, and maybe the players can even be like, all right, well, in the middle of this battle, we just run up and try to get into the Spire and like leave them behind. That's something they could totally do. I could literally treat it like an elevator where like once they go up, they can leave the others behind, and then we can worry about what happens in the after effects. So maybe they don't have to fight them to the death or anything. Yeah, this is definitely going to be a Matrix type moment for sure. In fact, it even says, yeah, music, people, food, decor, and warmth are illusions that the characters can interact with. The scene can be ended with a successful dispel magic spell, in which you then reveal that the wizards are a bunch of brain in a jars. Maybe I just accompany them with a bunch of mage in action instead of the helmed horror. Or I could have like a mini boss fight and have that be Veneranda with the brain in a jar and the helmed horror on top. I just like that combo. I think it's a really fun visual. In fact, we get a... Okay, we do get a special handout for that. That's really good. Look at that, the helmed horror, but just as a brain in a jar on top. That is such a cool creature design. I'm going to use it, whether or not I use this NPC or not, I should use this as like a mini boss thing. Or, if I don't use it here, I'll use this as a mini boss for the boss fight. I don't know about using several of these, because that might be too much, although we are looking at a big boss fight. But basically, Larthus will be a Elder Brain that they will have to fight once they make it through the Spire here. But I love that idea of the brain on top of the tour. That's such a cool, and you literally like roll them separately. They have separate actions, but they're together, and technically the brain can fly off, I believe, as well. This is unfortunately a map that doesn't have any detail to it, but it looks, the floors and walls look good, but doesn't have any actual like art assets in there, which is a bummer. Yeah, the brain whore is one of my favorite designs. I agree, Grey Cat. It's so good. It's so good. I don't know whether I want to necessarily use the NPC because I think she provides a lot of good information. Veneranda is coldly calculating and fully aware of Etherin's fate. Communicate with her. She greets them. Oh, and plus I may have that freaking necromancer with them as well, who would know. Well, who's basically addled and doesn't know much, and I don't want him to be a big font of information, but maybe the necromancer would know the general layout of the spire. But he wouldn't know what's been going on in the spire for the last, whatever it's been, thousands of years, because maybe he's been tied to the Tower of Necromancy, so he doesn't be able to like get any updates about what's going on. It is kind of Krang from TMNT. That's true. Krang was in like the belly, wasn't he? Of boy, I don't know if you guys played what was the video game? Shredder's Revenge. Really, really good. Like a really good side scroller, beat 'em up, modern beat 'em up in vein of the classic. Like, what is it, Manhattan Project and Turtles in Time. Fantastic game. Second only to another good modern beat 'em up, which was Streets of Rage 4. I think is actually a little bit superior, but Shredder's Revenge, very, very good. But yeah, Krang, and Krang is totally in that game, and he's like in the little chest area. He had a funny ass voice too, and he looked like just a brain with like tentacle things. That's yeah, good reference. Greets the Marilyn LaRose and tries to find out what has happened in the world in the centuries since Etherin's fall. Singular goal is to restore Ethern to best glory. She doesn't want the city crashed, but she believes that the broken obelisk can turn back time to repair the damage. I don't think I'm going to do that angle to activate its magic. Vandarana says she needs the Staff of Power, which Iriel Arthas keeps in his study. Characters break into the study, steal the staff, and bring it to her. So she's the one that introduces the turn back time quest line. The only reason I would use this NPC would be if she specifically would be able to update the players on the fact that Iriel Arthas is still in some state of living. Maybe he's the one that proposed the whole brain in a jar thing for them to live on. And he's the one, and basically just update the fact that you need to take him out. Like, he might be currently attuned to the Mythalar, but he's probably far gone. And that would be important. So the crazy thing is they give you this awesome design, and yet it's a quest-giving NPC. You don't actually fight this this awesome combination, which is a little disappointing. So I don't know. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to use this character as an NPC, but gosh, you got to use that design in some way for sure. But yeah, I like the brain engine. So this would be a battle in here for sure, I think. If the players do try to just interact with things and realize it's illusion, or even if they just make it through the room and maybe they're disrupting illusion or something, I think I would just force a fight here, because otherwise I wouldn't think they would ever get a chance to fight the Brain in a Jar stat block. I don't see them fucking with Lawrence too much in the Tower of Necromancy. And I think the only other forced fight is by the time they make it through this portal here, they have to fight a pair of living Blades of Disaster, which are pretty nicely powerful stat blocks. You can use that as some guards, and maybe even throw some more living spells in there, so that'd be another fight. Then they have a little bit of a puzzle section where they have to remember the names of the High Wizards, or at least one name, and then have at least one wizard with them, which to me, that's the video game designer coming, is that it's like, oh, this is why you have to ally with one of the wizards, because like you need them to open, or to sit on this chair in order to open the path to Iriel Arthas, which then takes you technically to this chamber, but I'm going to be using a completely different boss map. It's going to be much larger. I'm not going to be using the Demi-Lich. I'm replacing all of this final encounter with a completely new, customly built final boss room. I think I'm going to actually keep most of the spire otherwise, so I think I'm just going to keep the boss room to a boss room, and I'll deal with Iriel Arthas there. That'll be a big fight, but that will not be the final fight, because what that fight will do is unlock the path to the Mythalar. And then we'll have to use another Mythalar battle. So there's a lot of climaxes here I'm basically creating, and hopefully I don't pull my hair out from doing this, but climax the first multiple climaxes, if you will. Climax the first is outside of the Spire, meeting Avarice, Baelish, and Nass, and basically having to deal with the Arcane Brotherhood or delaying it in some way. Again, this is D&D. I'm willing to listen to the players and see what kind of plan they come up with. But the Arcane Brotherhood will not necessarily want to work with each other. They do not wish to divvy up the Mythallar. Like, one faction gets to stake the claim and gets to be the first there, and they all want to be the first one to make it out there. So it could be a fight. It could even be a three-way battle. Like, I'm willing to try to figure out and work with the players to determine how that's going to end up playing out. But that'll be like one of the climaxes, basically dealing with the Arcane Brotherhood. And then the second one will be dealing with Iriel Arthas and basically the security system of Ithrin that has been keeping everything in lockdown and, you know, keeping the Shardland Golem running around and the Magen keep powered up and essentially has locked the way to the Mythallar. So that'll be another big boss fight the players will deal with. And then the third climax will be when they reach the Mythallar. And once they defeat Iriel Arthas, that turns off the force field, turns off the security system around Ithrin, which now allows Auril to finally swoop in at the Mythallar moment. And now they have to battle Auril, basically, once they determine what they need to do. Or they could be a fun twist where Auril just shows up and she maybe tries to draw the energies from the remaining Mythallar, and then she would become like an even more powerful version of a goddess, and maybe I don't know if there's different ranks. Are there lesser and greater gods? I don't know, but maybe she can ascend to the next level up of being a god. So that's a lot of big moments that I'm hoping to pull off at the end of this campaign. That has hopefully been the payoff of all the very detailed story changes and adaptations that I've been making to this campaign, which we'll have a lot to talk about that during the epilogue sequence about all the various changes and modifications and things. But it's hopefully it will pay off. But a lot of this is up to the players. It's up to the choices they make, and that's part of the fun I'm having, is having the wiggle room to give the players these choices, right? I think the only forced fight they're going to have out of all of those is the Iriel Arthas fight. Will be a traditional big boss fight with minions and things. The Arcane Brotherhood one, who knows how they're going to resolve that, and if they don't, they could stall it and have the Brotherhood having those various members come meet them outside of the Mythallar. Maybe then it's like, all right, well, you didn't deal with them then, so they have to deal with them now. And then Auril, same thing. That most likely will be a fight, but maybe not. And Frey is like a disciple of Auril now, so maybe she'll turn on the player. I don't. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. Your world, do what you want with the gods. Yeah, for sure. I am the god. So I get a reflex if that doesn't work like this, but then remember, I'm watching Rogue Watson, so it'll be cool. Yeah, I apologize to everybody who is, I don't say a stickler for rules, but, and don't get me wrong, I have missed a lot of legitimate stuff that I appreciate being informed about. Various, like, holes in my lore knowledge or misreading a stat block or a spell or something. Definitely give me all that information. I do appreciate it. There are obviously times where I just want to change something to hopefully create a better story or create a better situation, and that's kind of the joy of playing a tabletop RPG, is I think I can make those changes. And the biggest one for sure has been the whole, like, the fact that Auril is not just a god that's always existed. It was a wizard that ascended into godhood based on the Mythallar and the Ithrin, and that helps tie it all together, because otherwise those two stories have like nothing to do with each other. So that was my angle going into it, and that's something I've had on my mind for, gosh, over a year, I think, with this I don't remember if I went into the campaign thinking that. Maybe I did. You have to go back and watch those pre-crafting streams and call me out whether I talked about that back then or not, but I honestly can't remember this one. It's been so long. We need to wrap this up. Grey Cat asked, got any plans? What's next? No. At this point, no. I will say, I've mentioned a couple times, my plans are that I'm not going to start my next campaign for a little bit. I think we're going to take a couple months to do other, like, one-shots or kind of similar to what Heather did with running 4 sessions of Forge of Fury, maybe explore some maybe classic D&D layer adventures. So nothing that would be a single thing that would take months, but for sure I think smaller bite-sized adventures, and maybe do a chance to have all of us as a group explore even other rule sets, like running like the Pathfinder beginner box or something for funsies and exploring kind of different things. So I think you'll see for a couple months us doing other things to where we're still, putting out content and whatever, but we're not going to be doing a full campaign. Although still, by the way, doing my Patreon D&D campaign, Empire of the Ghouls, which is a full ongoing campaign. And then probably we're looking at the end of summer, then I will start up my campaign. But I'll also be doing some, pre-streams for that. So, and we'll be voting on which campaign I should do next with patrons. So, it'll all be kind of an overlapping process. So you'll be getting all those pre-streams about the campaign before we actually start the new one. All right. I think that is going to do it for this session of Crafting Icewind Dale. As always, if you enjoy the content, please check out patreon.com/RogueWatson. Shouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Stan, Brandon, Genocider, David, Eclectic, Roleplay, Roll, Christopher, Brian, William, David, Corey, Koa1337, Big Nut, John, Chris, Scott, Gene, Eric, Socks, Dan, Tyler, Nathan, Camp, Crystal Lake Counselor, and Big Shep. And gold patrons, RPG, Papercrafts, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Marcus, Dead Lizard Lounge, Sam, Lumpy Spuds, Jerome, Nathan, Fast Like a Tortoise, Scott, Refus, Carolyn, and William. Thank you all very much for your support. I will see you for D&D tomorrow night. I will tease that the campaign that Heather really wants to do, or the classic Dungeon Adventure module, is Tomb of Freaking Horrors.